Thank you, Commissioner. Before I welcome her to the stage, I'd like to take a moment to say a few words about Martha Gilmer, the CEO of the San Diego Symphony Orchestra. After 35 years with the Chicago Symphony, Martha made the decision to come to San Diego, as you heard, in 2014, to lead this organization. In a very short time, she has, without a doubt, made a huge impact. Our orchestra now sounds like $1 million, and it can hold its own with any ensemble on the planet. Martha has led the effort to build the new summer site that we just heard about. She has inspired bold new directions in programming. She's initiated the January festival. She's connected our orchestra to our community, and in a masterful fashion, she has shepherded the process that led to the hiring of Rafael Payare. So it is indeed my very great pleasure to introduce Martha Gilmer.
Thank you, Greg. You know, I heard about Greg Lemke's great passion and knowledge of music before I met him. And when we first met, I knew I could not talk to him about neurobiology. So I thought perhaps I could impress him with my musical insight. I was disabused of that as quickly as well, as Greg revealed his deep and extensive knowledge of music. Greg has been such an important part and listener for the past 2.5 years, and it is only fitting, therefore, that you lead us today and as our host for this. And thank you for being such an important part of the family. In addition to all of the other people that have been welcomed, and I welcome you as well, I also want to take a moment to say a welcome to our cultural leaders that are here throughout the audience. It means so much. Monday mornings are busy, but that you would come out is, I think, emblematic of what this city's cultural institutions are to each other. And I have to say that Rafael's first experience with San Diego was at a reception at our home, at Bill's and my home, just before we started It's About Time, the festival. And we had about 50 cultural leaders there, and Rafael and his wife, Alyssa Weilerstein, joined, and we had 2 hours of conversation and scintillating exchange of what's possible. Do you think I could have planned it better? Rafael immediately realized the depth of knowledge and creativity and caring in this community. And I do think that was a great part of this process. I would also like to join in thanking the members of the search committee. As Warren said earlier, the process was dynamic, comprehensive, and it was critical, and it included critical and valuable input from our musicians. Warren Kessler, as chair of the board, but also chair of the committee, invested a tremendous amount of time and brought such excitement and passion to the process. He would have one-on-one conversations with 21 conductors that came here to work with our orchestra. He was always extremely well prepared, as those of you who know him know he would be. And he came up with thoughtful questions about music and life. The fact that the chair of the committee's first questions and last questions were about music makes a tremendous statement of the leadership of this orchestra, and I thank you, Warren, for that. As a committee, we created a list of important factors to consider in choosing a new music director. Of course, the music making is the most essential and comes first, and a connection with our orchestra on that musical level. In addition, a commitment to connecting with our audience and community was crucially important. Rafael Payare checked all of the boxes. I first met Rafael in the summer of 2015. I just practiced backstage. In the summer of 2015 in Aspen, Colorado. I encouraged him to come to San Diego. It's a great orchestra, I told him. I also had a secret weapon. His wife, the remarkable cellist Alyssa Weilerstein, had appeared as a soloist with the orchestra, and I said, Rafael has to come here. It's a great orchestra in a great city. And she said, I know. Finally, this past January, Rafael met the orchestra for the first time. The program included a work that the orchestra knew very well, Prokofiev's Fifth Symphony, as well as a complex concerto with Steve Schick as soloist, a concerto by Roberto Sierra. Is Steve here today? I know he wanted to be. Thank you, Steve. You were also a very important part of this courtship. There was a great concentration and focus during the rehearsals. On Friday night, the program began with the Berlioz Overture, Roman Carnival, and it sparkled. In the entire program, I felt such a sense of commitment and excitement and confidence, and the audience felt it as well. It was clear then that this would be a great partnership. Rafael would be the first to tell you that his life was changed by music at 14 when he began to play the horn in the El Sistema program in his native Venezuela. El Sistema's mission is social change through music. Strikingly and coincidentally close to the San Diego Symphony's changing lives through music. An important part of his vision as music director will be to support the connection between the orchestra, its musicians, and the community we live in, a connection we have very much begun to build. I know without a doubt that Rafael will be embraced by the entire San Diego region. The universality of music in our world is to be recognized, encouraged, and held close. As part of the recent It's About Time festival, which Rafael opened and Steve curated, we had a concert at the Mexican-US border. It was an incredible experience. And after it was over, one of the Border Patrol agents, with whom we found ourselves in a kind of ongoing conversation and a deep connection, said the following: events here at the border are always about our differences as two nations. This one was all about our similarities, doing things together. As it is over, I miss it. I did not want it to end. Music can do this. We are committed to making it so. We will not let it end. This is a momentous time in the life of the San Diego Symphony. So it is my deep pleasure to introduce to you the next music director of the San Diego Symphony, Rafael Payare. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
He's had to stand backstage for a very long time. But you're used to that, standing
A little
around.
bit, yeah.
So Rafael, let's start at the beginning. Today is the Day of the Child in Mexico.
Oh.
And we had some wonderful children performers in the audience. But probably one of the questions I'm asked most by our audiences here is, what can we do to make sure children have a life in music? Now, you speak from some personal experience. What made you choose to pick up the horn at 13, 14, and what did that mean?
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to actually be born in Venezuela, where it has this wonderful program founded by Maestro José Antonio Abreu called El Sistema, of course. How I came to music was by chance, pretty much, because in Venezuela we do not have a national public radio that will broadcast classical music all day, or music, I would like to say. And actually, I just came to music through my brother. My brother was already playing in one of the núcleos of El Sistema. He was a bassoon player, and he was listening to music in his room. So I approached, like as a teenager, I was about to be 14, so you know how teenagers are. So a little bit jumping from one place to the other, and then something caught my attention. I asked, what was that? He asked me, do you like it? I said, yes. So like, okay. He brought me to the orchestra next day, and the conductor of the orchestra was this amazing French maestro. His name is Antoine Duhamel, and he was the teacher of trumpet, trombone, tuba, and French horn at the same time. So he bring me this, bronze thing and gave it to me and said, blow. I did. It came out a sound. So it was like, okay, that's it. You are going to play that. Where's that? Well, that's horn, or corno, as we say in Spanish. And then after that, everything started quite fast. After that, a couple of weeks later, he brought me into the audition for the orchestra. Of course, I have no idea what was that about. And when I told my brother was like, "You're not supposed to come tomorrow, Saturday." I was like, "Well, Antoine said that I did." So he thought that I was lying, of course. So we went and asked Antoine. Antoine said, "Yes, bring her." And I was like, "What's the big deal? I mean, he said that you need to come." So I have no idea. Of course, it was the audition for the semi-professional orchestra, and I have been playing the instrument only for 2 weeks. So, yeah. So he put me there. There was a panel. I found out what the panel was afterwards, of course. And I was like, well, what are you going to play for us? I was like, what do you mean? I mean, the only thing that you have told me, one scale. So, okay, play it. So I played the scale. That was on Saturday. By Monday, I was already playing in the orchestra. So, yeah, I remember that first encounter very well. It was Beethoven, Fifth Symphony. Second movement, and for horn players, we need to transpose. We do not play the real note. So he told me, well, this is a C, and I was like, that's not a C. That's a no. For this piece, this is a C. Like, okay, if this is a C, then this is a D. Okay, now you know how to transpose. That's it, and then. That was it, and that's how everything started with me. So coming back to the question why I think it's so important, I think that kids have no idea what they're going to be exposed. And if you try to put the music into them at the very early stage, which for me wasn't that early, but anyway, you will always want to try to tune and to try to listen to the other, to try to get the melody right, and to try to get that beautiful sound and overtone that happens when everything is exactly just right. And if we try to put this into regular life, then the world would be quite different. If we actually, instead of saying this is not the way, we say, like, wait a second, let's try to tune each other, and then we could see, well, this actually makes sense. It's not like you are right and I'm wrong. No, we need to just tune like in music. A fifth is a fifth. It doesn't matter what is what do you want to do, and it will never sound right until you actually get it in tune. And once you get it, immediately you could hear and feel the different sound. If you apply that to life, it's a completely different thing. We would be living in a much easier world, I think.
A quick study, they might call you. And what did your brother say when you were suddenly in the orchestra?
I think he was proud. Yeah, of course. I mean, he was. My brother is 8 years older than I am. I am the youngest of 5. And he just started taking me to the orchestra, and it was very nice. And we have very different personalities as well. And I was a little bit wilder when I was a teenager, but he really liked it. And of course, everything happened quite fast after that. I mean, with the orchestra, in 2 weeks I was playing there, and within like 6 months or 7 months became the audition for the National Children's Orchestra. They took me like, okay, you go and play. I did, and we started having these tours and getting to know these people. A year after that, I was the first one of the orchestra in my town. So I like to say, I just got into this wonderful train, and I just got in and just be led, and been riding ever since.
It's great. So conducting came a little later. You had a brass ensemble, and Maestro Abreu saw you conduct. Yeah,
well, the thing was with the National Children's Orchestra, we have this we used to do some what we call seminars. We brought people from different parts of the country. We're in Caracas, sometimes in a different city. We work a lot, doing sectionals and then doing rehearsals. And I remember to try to do any kind of rubato or ritardando or anything for the orchestra. It takes quite a long time. And then this Italian maestro, he did a tour with us. His name was Giuseppe Sinopoli. And he did not speak Spanish. But just with his energy and with his aura, he changed the color and the sound of the orchestra within minutes. I remember we were playing a Rienzi Overture, and I was like, wow. And then we played the fourth movement of Mahler's First Symphony, and I was like, what is happening? How he changed that? So let's say that was the bug of conducting that got into me. I said, like, I would like to do that when I'm very old and my hair is white. I will want to do that. So I just wanted to keep playing my French horn. So we have our brass quintet, and we usually went in different cities in Venezuela and did a little concert on Thursday, master class on Friday, Saturday, and on Sunday morning we put a brass ensemble together and do a concert with the kids that we in that city that we did. I mean, trying to what we have achieved in those 2 days, we make a performance out of it. And then once I went to Maestro Abreu's office, I was going to talk about him a little bit about the future. I wanted to play some concertos and something like that, and he started talking to me. Well, he started talking about, for conducting, there are things that they need to be in the right place to have some conducting. You need to have the dedication because it's a hard life, and you need to have this. But there are good conductors that even though having all of this, they could make okay. By the time he was saying me this, I was, it was like, okay, this is not what I'm going to talk, but fine, I will just keep hearing. That was his wonderful ability that whenever he was talking, he was like 15 years ahead. You realize that later, But
How old were you at this point?
I was maybe 22, yeah. And he keeps talking about conducting. I was like, I will just wait, and then I will tell him what I want to do. Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm sure that is very wise, but right. Then I was telling, there's something with leadership and some other things that you cannot teach that. There are some things that comes in, and then you could have this, but then if you don't have the right way to put it for an orchestra, that is not going to work. Okay, great. But there's another part as well, that when you have the combination of that, and then you are all the time trying to seek for something, and you are actually able to make people look at your vision and go with you. And those conductors are quite different. That makes one of a kind of thing, and it's kind of different. I'm so like, yeah, okay, master, that's great. And he made a pause, so I said like, okay, I will tell about the concerto. I said like, well, I think actually that if you let me, I think that I have seen you conduct with the brass ensemble when you did with the quintet, the thing, and if you let me, I think that you could become a conductor. Just if you let me, I will show you the path, and I will put you into it. Of course, when he said that, I was like, what? And then immediately I said, well, yes, and he sent me to have all the theoretical part in quite intense way with one-on-one lessons instead of having the normal way of, you go every week and have a little bit. No, I have session of 5 or 6 hours with just to get all the theory and everything right. And then I have classes with him in his office that were remarkable because there was no piano, no recording or anything. He just said like, okay, let's do a symphony, and you have to sing all the parts and conduct the whole thing. And he was the orchestra. I have to sing everything, and it's no, you're missing one entrance. I am the timpani. I didn't understand. I've been waiting for 25 minutes to my instrument, and you didn't cue me. Like, okay, and he was all the time, you have to have this and try. That's what I try to conduct from memory because of what he said. He got a thing saying like, it's very important when you go and do something that the score is in your head and not your head in the score. So that way you could be all the time being able to see the musician and try to help them. And I mean, all the musicians just want the same thing, that it's to play and try to get the right thing. Sometimes the technical part gets in the way, and that is when you actually need to step in and help them, that they could feel support and that everything could come. So yeah, that everything is there with that, and then the rest is history.
So, being a member of an orchestra, having performed in an orchestra, and I'm taken with that comment about your reaction to Sinopoli, how he changed the sound. Does that influence how you work with an orchestra?
Absolutely, yeah. The wonderful thing with orchestra is they're a living instrument, and every single orchestra has a different characteristic to put into the music. And this is human beings, everybody has a life, and we come together for a rehearsal and we start, and there are so many things that need to be taken into consideration. But then you could see the way, the body language, you could see how if they're a little bit uncomfortable, or actually, even if you're thinking, okay, let's try to do it this way, but then you hear that there's a different color in the orchestra, you need to change and interact with that, and maybe put something out, something that you didn't think that you were going to do it before. That's the beautiful part. That's why it's so great that all the time when you go and make rehearsals and concerts, you always, it's a process that never stops learning, because there's so many different colors, so many different things. And me being able to play in an orchestra, you feel that when you know that something is right, and then you achieve this kind of magical moment that it happened. The feeling is so great. It's like having a wonderful appetizer, you know, that even though it's small and you take it, this is right, and then you feel it's a completely different thing. And then, okay, we can go for the next phrase, and that's what I always try to achieve and get into any kind of performance.
So in the rehearsal, obviously you spend a lot of time on the detail and concept. How is the rehearsal, how did you find it even here, from rehearsal to concert? What is that journey, or the concert to concert?
Yeah, well, of course, in rehearsal, let's say that we put all the ingredients together, so we make sure that if we are cooking, you know, you clean up and you wash everything, and you know that everything, if it needs, okay, this part needs to be cut, so you just put out things before you prepare the dish, and trying to make it the most important thing in the performance, that is actually the dish that you're going to eat, is how we actually get into there. So, of course, always the rehearsal part, we wanted to be sure, and usually there's, there's things that you ask the orchestra, do we need to do something? Well, I feel slightly uncomfortable doing it. Can we repeat? Of course, let's do it. So then we could actually perform. Because the rehearsal part, yes, we try to achieve different things, let's say ensemble-wise, trying to make it a little bit in the vertical side. But then at the moment that you're going to perform, this is what it's all about. You want to get to transmit to the wonderful audience what you are wanting to do, of course, taking care of the composer that did this wonderful work, whatever it is, a symphony or an overture, a concerto with the soloist or whatever it is, but that we go into this and we have all the ingredients right for the moment that we're going to assemble the dish, and then you could actually eat it, and then you forget about the process of how, that you need to wash, and that you need to go to the supermarket, and you need to do the queue and everything. At the end, you just remember what it tastes, if the dish you did it right, you just remember that, this is a wonderful food, that this was a wonderful meal, so then I'm going to get hungry 3 hours later. So,
Can you tell, Rafael really likes food, can you tell? And I can tell you that he's discovered some of our very fine restaurants.
Yeah,
Shabu Shabu
World, yes, that's amazing. Yeah, Shabu Shabu World.
Shabu Shabu World, there you go.
No.
So there's a lot more to discover.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You've conducted so many orchestras in this world, I mean, literally, around the world. Warren mentioned Chicago, where I was happy to be able to hear you with an orchestra I know so well. But the Danish orchestra for the Malko competition, and of course Vienna Philharmonic that you'll conduct again in June. Are orchestras different one to another? Are your approach?
Oh yes, it's every single one of them is different, and that's actually beautiful, because of course the approach to it is completely different, and you need to change your. This will sound strange, but even the beat, the way an orchestra reacts to the beat is completely different, and you get to adjust to it in the very beginning of rehearsal. You see, and then you say, okay, this is coming late, it's your fault. Okay, okay, now I know that maybe for saying something, a wind instrument, it needs a little bit more time to breathe, to get an entrance in one place to the other, so you have to adjust. And even though the music, it's, I mean, a composer, let's say it's Mozart, or it's Beethoven, or Strauss, is the same composer, everything, it just links differently. And you need to react and being able, again, this is human beings, that you need to change that. Even though that you could have in your head and a structure how this should be, you are always changing, and that's why even conductor from conductor and orchestra to orchestra, you go and you listen to them, and everything is always a little bit different, a little bit, it could be for good or for bad, of course. I mean, it's not always great, but it's always something different. That's why it's so good that we can do that. Otherwise, we could just stay with, the old recordings, and then why bother to go to a concert? I heard this, and it's a great recording, and that's fine. But then when you come to the concert, and actually you are part of it, because you react with the orchestra, and the orchestra react differently in every single of the concert, and even though the audience maybe think or not that they do not interfere, they do. And that kind of electricity comes, especially when you're putting so much in it and so much energy. If you don't feel the energy is coming back as well from the audience, then you get tired, and it's slightly different. But then if everybody's aiming the same, then you get out of a concert having that kind of electricity, and you go home thinking, well, that was wonderful. I'm just looking forward to the next one. And that's what I always try to achieve.
So let's talk a little bit about San Diego and two paths. First of all, we've talked a little bit about some of your ideas for programming and what you hope to bring to the orchestra in terms of that, maybe some cycles, and also introducing works perhaps that haven't been done by the orchestra. Talk a little bit about how you want to do that and what your ideas are.
Well, of course, it was a very short time when I was here in January, but I could see, and I was very excited, what is the wonderful artists that are on the stage that you actually see from week to week in here. I just got a little bit of a taste during that week, but you could see where those things could, how do you put it? It's like if you go to a market and then you see wonderful product, you could see how many different dishes you could do for a meal. You could think of a, sorry, I'm back to the food, but yeah, that you could do, a 7-meal course or a 2-meal course, or just a very heavy meal course with these different things. And of course, the musicians and the artists in here, they are so great. My approach, and of course, we are going to have a lot of fun talking about these things, as you said. We need to see what has been played by the orchestra a little bit. I have some ideas with some cycles, some composers, as you know, like Shostakovich. Of course, we're going to be doing some Beethoven for the Beethoven year as well. But Mozart is something that is also something that is so wonderful, not only for the artistical part of the orchestra, because to play Mozart, you need to have the right balance of an absolute virtuosity to play, but the calm to actually put it in a fresh and transparent way, so you could actually have it. It's like having a glass of champagne, if it's at the right temperature, you just feel it, and it's like, well, that's nice. It will give you that kind of thing. So when I was talking to some of the members of the orchestra, we were talking about that if the orchestra has been doing cycle lately, and they were saying that no, and that's also very interesting, because we could make the audience be part of this journey, how a composer that everybody likes or have some good esteem, we could see how it changed or how it develops, and that's a wonderful story to tell, and we could bring the audience with this. We were talking also about the Mahler Ruckeleiter, for instance, so we could bring a little bit more of vocal music and trying to put it into the way, so we are all walking the journey that so many composers have done and that we love, and instead of just having just one tiny piece, we could actually make the journey complete, and then will have a different kind of understanding what they meant or what they went through that. And just thinking about that make me ignite so many different ideas with Strauss or Mozart or Shostakovich or Haydn, Stravinsky, and Tchaikovsky, I don't know, but French music, it will depend. I really just wanted to do what is right for the orchestra, for the audience, and trying to that we enjoy the journey together.
So tomorrow, we're taking Rafael to 3 community locations, San Diego High School, and we're going to Chula Vista, where they have a wonderful music program in their schools based on El Sistema program. And we're also going to the barrio to meet with some of the community leaders that we've been, and partners that we've been doing work with in the last 2 years, and taking a tour of the murals in the barrio. So this really brings up this idea of the role of an orchestra in its community, and how it's part of the fabric of the community, how it really breathes as one with the community. And I know you've done some of that in Ulster, and I know you have ideas about this as well.
Yes, yes, indeed. It will be wonderful to see the different part of the community as well, of course, and get the involvement of the orchestra. They could have an input in the different part of the city, but also I would like to see how we could actually, even though it could be a different part of the city, how we link them together. So maybe trying to do a program that maybe we put them all together side by side with an orchestra, or that we could think in a project to try to put the different part of the communities around San Diego to try to get a concert all together. And that's just doing that tiny little thing, it will make a huge difference. For instance, sometimes with the school, with the sports, you go, let's say something about basket, for instance. If you go, maybe you go to another school and you compete with the others. So of course there's a little bit of this kind of friction because you want to win. With music, we don't need that. With music, actually, we just go to another school and just try to put them together to make music. And one of the ideas that I have that I just wanted to see is to try to put the different communities to try to make a big orchestra and do some projects together that will make the community like a big whole, even though if they are in different parts, because once you go, of course, the parents or the brothers or sisters or everything, they will want to go and support the kids, but at the same time, they will be meeting that other part that they maybe haven't, you know, is another kid from another part of the city that maybe they have no idea that exists, and then it becomes a friendship that it will last forever. I mean, I know that was the case for me with El Sistema in Venezuela, and I still call my orchestra family. I mean, we grew up all together, and we were from very different part of the country. So I want to try to bring that a little bit into San Diego. It doesn't have to be that large, but having to put them all together with the help of the orchestra, of course, and that will make sometimes there are, it could be that people that might think that classical music is just for the elite or something like that, and then if they will come to a concert with their, you know, cousin or nephews or niece, and they will see that what this was actually nice, and they will want to hear a little bit more, and then we could bring them into the hall. And it's like, this is the orchestra, and we could have that kind of exchange. That's one of my ideas. And
we talked a little bit also by nationally, since this is the region, as a matter of fact, crossing 2 countries.
Yeah. I mean, it's so close that Mexico is just there that it would be great that we could do this, you know, trying to put them together, just making music. This is not about who's going to win or who's going to, we need to achieve this. No, just put them together and you will make a bond. And that bond, I know firsthand, that lasts for a lifetime.
So Rafael will return in January of 2019, doing 2 programs.
Yeah.
Mussorgsky, Pictures from an Exhibition, on the first program.
Yes, and Shostakovich 10th. Yeah, when Alisa will be playing Britten Cello Symphony, which have not been played here, right?
Which has not been played here. And Shostakovich 10 hasn't been played here for a very long time.
That would be interesting. That will be lovely. And we are going to do Strauss Don Juan as well. I remember that, of course, before we were talking about me being here, we have this week already penciled, and I was like, I would love to hear the orchestra playing some Strauss, because the technical ability of the orchestra is so great and the string play is so beautiful that trying to, Strauss tone points are so rewarding in that sense, because for the strings playing, it's so hard, but at the same time, it's so beautiful that you always want to achieve, and sometimes you are a little bit unhappy because it's slightly uncomfortable, but that's I think that one of the strengths of this orchestra is that virtuosity, that it will come across beautifully with Strauss. That's why I was like, I would like to hear the orchestra play some Strauss. And when you say, like, well, let's do Don Juan, it's like, great. And then we could have also the power of the orchestra having Shostakovich's Mighty Tenth. And I have to say, I'm very excited about it.
And now you can see why we're all so excited. Rafael, thank you so much. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.